Ever feel like you just want to know things instantly? Like, download a whole library into your brain.
Oh, definitely. We all get that feeling, right? Maybe you're prepping for something big or just curious.
Exactly. But wading through tons of info, it can feel like, well, a lot.
That's sort of where we come in. Think of this as your shortcut. We dig through sources, pull out the really key stuff.
The insights, the interesting bits, hopefully delivered in a way that, clicks.
And today, our source material is pretty interesting. It's excerpts from Mastering IELTS Listening and Cultural Stories.
Now, hang on. Even if IELTS sounds a bit study-focused,
Mm.
our real mission here is exploring this great story. It's about a community saving its own history.
Yeah, we'll look at how it started, the challenges, the impact, and we'll weave in some language insights, too. Useful for anyone, really.
Okay, so where does this story start?
It starts in Elmswood. It's a city in Colorado described as pretty bustling.
And what was the issue there?
Well, there was this feeling, a growing concern, that the history of its diverse people, immigrants, artists, innovators, was just fading, being lost.
Ah, that quiet disappearing act. That's powerful. So what did they do?
Their solution was pretty inspired. They decided to create a community audio archive.
An audio archive. Okay, tell me more. How did that kick off?
The spark, apparently, came from Sophia. She was just 21, a history buff.
Wow, 21. That's impressive.
Isn't it? She went to a city council meeting and pitched it. And she said something like, imagine an archive where every voice in Elmswood lives forever.
Okay, every voice lives forever. That's quite a vision. It really paints a picture.
It does. But, a big idea like that immediately raises questions, practical ones.
Like, how on earth do we pay for this?
Exactly. Funding is almost always the first hurdle. But what's interesting is that Sophia's passion was apparently really, well, contagious.
Right, that initial energy can make a huge difference in getting past those first obstacles.
It really can. And they came up with a great name, too. The Echoes of Elmswood Audio Archive.
Echoes of Elmswood. I like that. It sounds historical, evocative.
It does, doesn't it? And early on, they used a community forum on a site called happytalk.in just to brainstorm ideas.
What sort of ideas?
Things like immigrant journeys or Elmswood Beats, which was about the local music scene, really trying to capture the different threads of the community.
So they had the vision, the name, some great starting points.
Yeah,
But then comes the hard part, right? The actual building of it.
precisely. The nuts and bolts. Getting the money was tough.
So how'd they tackle that?
Their main strategy was pitching to foundations, really leaning into the heritage preservation angle, safeguarding their identity.
Smart. Frame it around something funders care about. Did they run into other problems building this thing? Practical stuff.
Oh, yeah. Two big ones early on. First, good recording gear, surprisingly pricey.
Mm-hmm.
And second, just keeping track of all those audio files, organizing them so people could actually find things. That's a puzzle in itself.
Right, you can't just have a digital shoebox full of recordings. It needs structure. So what was the fix?
This is where those happytalk.in resources came in handy again.
Mm-hmm.
They used the archiving guides on there to streamline the whole process, how to manage the files, organize everything.
So leveraging available tools.
Yeah.
That makes sense for a community project.
Definitely. And it wasn't just the back-end stuff. They used the platform to get people excited, too.
How so?
They'd share little audio snippets, teasers, basically, like a movie trailer, to build hype before the official launch.
That's clever. Give people a taste. What about the equipment costs, though, that snag you mentioned?
Oh, that had a great resolution. A local community center actually donated a proper recording booth.
Oh, fantastic. Community stepping up.
Exactly. And then volunteers got trained up using happytalk.in's audio editing tutorials. So people power plus community support.
That's really heartwarming. It shows what can happen when people pull together. Do we know any specific stories they recorded?
We do. Sophia's own uncle, a Mr. Rivera, recorded a series called Tales of Old Elmswood, stories from the 1960s.
Oh, wow. Those firsthand accounts are gold, aren't they?
Absolutely. They bring history alive in a way nothing else really can.
So they got it all together, the funding, the tech, the stories. What happened at the launch?
They had a big listening party after about 9 months of work. And the uptake was, well, pretty immediate.
How immediate?
In the first month alone, 200 recordings logged and 2,000 online streams.
2,000, straight away.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Shows there was a real appetite for it.
Totally. And now it's seen as this digital treasure trove, really fostering pride and connection in Elmswood.
A treasure trove. I like that.
There's even a quote from a listener, Maya, who said, "Hearing my grandma's story in the archive blew me away." That personal connection is key.
It really is, making history feel personal, not distant. What was Sophia's big takeaway from it all?
Her insight was, listening with purpose and clear communication made this possible. It wasn't just about recording, it was about understanding each other and working together effectively.
Listening with purpose, that's a great phrase. And is this idea spreading beyond Elmswood?
It seems so. Their success is apparently inspiring other towns and cities to think about their own stories, their own archives. It's become a bit of a model.
That's fantastic. Okay, so that's the Elmswood story. Really inspiring stuff. Now, you mentioned our source material also gets into some language aspects.
Yes, it uses the story as a springboard. First up, some key vocabulary that came up.
All right, let's hear them.
Okay, first one. Undertaking. Remember they said the archive was a huge undertaking? It just means a big, often difficult project or task.
Right, like starting a business, that's a major undertaking. Got it. Next.
Safeguard. They wanted to safeguard our heritage. So to safeguard is simply to protect something valuable.
Protect from harm or loss. Makes sense for historical recordings. Okay, number 3.
Number 3 is snag. They hit snags with funding. A snag is like a little unexpected problem or obstacle.
Like a catch or a difficulty you didn't foresee. Okay, number 4.
Streamline. They use guides to streamline the process. To streamline is to make something more efficient, simpler, smoother.
Like streamlining a workflow.
Okay. Number 5.
Heritage. Key to their mission. Safeguard our heritage. Heritage is all that stuff, traditions, culture, history, passed down through generations.
Like music or historical sites, part of a community's identity. Got it.
Number 6, contagious. Sophia's passion was contagious, means it spread easily, like a good laugh or enthusiasm.
Wish my motivation was always that contagious. Okay, number 7.
Lore. Capturing local lore. Lore means the traditional stories, knowledge, beliefs of a group, often passed down orally. Folk tales, legends, that sort of thing.
Every place has its own lore, yeah. Number 8.
Hype. They build hype with the audio snippets. Hype is just that big public excitement around something. Buzz.
Like the hype before a big movie release. All right, number 9.
Trove. The archive became a digital treasure trove. A trove is just a collection of valuable or delightful things, like finding buried treasure.
A trove of stories in this case. And the last one, number 10. Number 10 is foster. The archive was fostering pride and connection. To foster means to encourage something to develop or grow, nurture it.
Like fostering community spirit. Okay, great list. And the source suggests trying to use these.
Yeah, the task for listeners was to try writing a couple of sentences, IELTS style,
Yeah.
using some of this vocabulary. Good way to make it stick.
Definitely. Practice is key. All right, what else on the language front? You mentioned something called cleft sentences.
That's right. Cleft sentences. Sounds technical, but it's actually just a way to add emphasis.
Emphasis. How so?
Well, instead of just saying Sophia's passion drove the archive, the source gives the cleft sentence example. It was Sophia's passion that drove the archive. See how it puts the spotlight on her passion?
Ah, okay. So it isolates and highlights one part of the sentence. How do you make them? Are there rules?
There are basically 2 main structures. The first one starts it is or it was, then the thing you want to emphasize, then that or who, and then the rest.
Okay, like it is technology that transforms education. Puts the focus on technology.
Exactly. The other structure starts with what. So what plus subject verb, then is or was, and then the focus.
Give me an example of that word.
Instead of the archive preserved heritage, you could say what the archive did was preserve heritage. Emphasizes the action of preserving heritage.
Right. What the archive did focuses you on the outcome. So hearing these in, say, the IELTS listening test is a clue.
A big clue. It often signals, hey, pay attention, this bit is important. The speaker is deliberately stressing this information.
Useful. Does the source give more examples?
It does, like, it was the community's effort that made the archive succeed, or what Sophia wanted was to preserve Elmswood's stories.
Okay.
And it is oral histories that connect generations, or even it is happy talk in that boosts my listening skills.
Oh, okay. I see the pattern.
And one more. What the archive achieved was cultural preservation. Then there's it was Sophia who inspired the project.
Ah, so you use who for people.
Exactly. That's a common mistake. The source flag saying it was Sophia that led should be it was Sophia who led when the focus is person.
Good catch. A little grammar point there. Okay, so this all ties back to the IELTS listening source material. What specific listening strategies does it highlight?
Right. The first big one is detecting the speaker's purpose. Why are they saying what they're saying?
Beyond just the words, what's their goal? Persuading, informing, complaining.
Precisely. Are they trying to convince you of something, like we need more archives like this, that's persuasion, or are they just explaining how something works?
How do you pick up on that purpose?
Listen for signal words. Phrases like to illustrate often mean explanation is coming. Words like unfortunately might signal criticism or disappointment.
So those little connecting words again, they do a lot of work.
They really do. And context is huge. If the speaker is talking about history being lost, the purpose might be urgency, we need to act now.
Right. And in dialogues, like in section 3 of the test, different speakers might have different aims, right? One asks, one advises.
Exactly, you needed to track those different intentions. The source mentions a student, Arjun, who really improved by drilling specifically on identifying speaker purpose.
Practice makes perfect. Okay, what's the next strategy?
Strategy 2 is identifying logical arguments. This is super important for higher scores, especially in section 4, the lecture part.
Following the reasoning. How they build their case with evidence.
Yeah.
How do we spot that?
Look for cause and effect language. Words like because, so, thus, leads to, they show the connections. Archives preserve history, so they're vital, that kind of
Okay, spotting the logical links. What else?
examples. Speakers use them to back up points. Listen for instance, for example. If you hear that, you know evidence is coming. For instance, Elmswood's archive shows.
Right, this specific case that proves the general idea.
And listen for conclusions. Words like, therefore, in conclusion, to sum up. They signal the main takeaway of the argument.
It's like mapping the speaker's thought process. The source suggests listening to academic talks helps with this.
Definitely. Get used to that style of structured argument. And yeah, another student, Leela, apparently aced argument questions after focusing on this.
Good to know these strategies work. Now, you mentioned a cultural connection the source makes.
Yes, it connects the Elmswood story to U.S. oral history festivals. Fits perfectly, right? Community storytelling, preserving voices.
Oral history festivals, tell me more. What are they like?
They're community events, basically. People gather to record and share personal stories, family history, migration, resilience, you name it. Often live storytelling, sometimes feeding into archives. Very Elmswood-esque.
So like a live version of the archive project. Where do these happen?
The source mentions places like Colorado, where Elmswood is set, and New Mexico, places with strong traditions of valuing local narratives.
Cool. And how does this connect to IELTS, besides the theme?
Well, the topics discussed value of history, community pride often pop up in IELTS Speaking Part 3. Knowing phrases like safeguards heritage or builds connection can be useful.
Ah, so it provides relevant language and ideas for the speaking test, too.
Exactly. And idioms often used in this context, like pass down stories or traditions or keep alive memories.
Useful phrases.
Hmm.
How does learning about these festivals help listening skills, specifically?
3 ways, according to the source. 1, you hear diverse accents. Great practice for the test.
Makes sense. Exposure helps. 2,
2, you practice following narratives and catching details, just like in the lecture section of the test.
okay, narrative tracking. And 3,
3, these often involve multiple speakers, like panels or dialogues. That mimics section 3 of the test, helping you distinguish voices and track conversations.
real-world practice for test scenarios. The source actually suggests people go to storytelling events.
Yeah, if you can. It's a great, engaging way to practice listening in a natural setting.
Nice tip. Okay, the source also had a challenge for listeners, right?
It did. The challenge is basically, imagine you're adding your story to an archive like Elmswood's. Or describe a real story you think should be preserved. Record a 1-2 minute response, like IELTS Speaking Part 2.
And the twist is to try and use some things we talked about.
Exactly. Try to use one of the new vocabulary words like trove or foster. Try to use a cleft sentence. It was my grandmother's recipe that. And maybe borrow a phrase from the story like contagious passion.
Okay, so putting the vocabulary, grammar, and context together, what do you do with the recording?
Share it, in English obviously, with a friend, tutor, online group, and then just jot down one sentence about how it felt to share that story. The act of sharing is part of it.
Great challenge. Puts it all into practice. Now, there are also some bonus listening tips
Yep.
for really keen listeners.
Yep. 4 bonus tips. First one, managing audio complexity. Fast speech, tricky accents, background noise, especially in the cover sections.
Yeah, those can throw you off. What's the advice?
Train with diverse accents. Practice with faster audio sometimes. Learn to filter out noise and focus on keywords. And if possible, strategically replay tricky bits during practice.
Build resilience to those challenges. Okay, bonus tip 2.
Predicting question types. Getting good at guessing what kind of question is coming up. Gap fill, multiple choice, matching. Helps you listen more effectively.
How do you predict?
Skim the questions beforehand. Look at the format. Is there a blank? Expect a specific word or number. Multiple options. Listen for the distinctions. Match the audio style to the section. Lectures often have arguments. Announcements have name states.
So use the question paper clues to guide your listening. Smart. Tip 3.
Improving selective listening. That means focusing only on the info you need for the answers and tuning out the rest. Avoid overload.
Easier said than done sometimes. How?
Keep the questions front of mind. Listen for the keywords from the questions. Practice scanning audio for relevant moments. Use practice materials that have extra irrelevant info to train yourself to filter.
Train your focus, basically. And the last bonus tip.
Enhancing test day focus. Simple strategies to stay calm and concentrated during actual test.
Always useful. What are they?
Practice in quiet test-like conditions. Do short warm-up listening drills before a practice test or on the day. Use breathing techniques in breaks. And visualize success sounds cheesy, but it can help with nerves and focus.
Good practical advice for managing the pressure. Okay, well, that feels like a really thorough deep dive.
It was packed. We went from the Echoes of Elmswood story, that whole community initiative,
Right, through the 10 vocabulary words, the cleft sentences for emphasis.
the core IELTS strategies like speaker purpose and logical arguments, the cultural link to oral history festivals.
And finished with those 4 bonus tips on complexity, prediction, selective listening, and focus, plus the listener challenge.
It really brings home how powerful stories are, doesn't it? And how really listening connects language, culture, and community. Makes you wonder what stories around you are waiting to be heard.